Cross Talk TV podcast. Peace. Welcome to another episode of Croc Talk TV. I am your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. And today is Monday, and now every Monday from here to the end of the season, I will be joined by my guy, Greg Panelli, quarterback guru, all right, trains a ton of kids all throughout California, from Northern California, Southern California. He kind of felt a little disrespected when I slighted him last time, saying that he was a Central Valley guy. So he's all through California. He's worked with guys like Josh Allen. We've seen the progression. He'll give us some insight on guys like him, other NFL quarterbacks he trains with, trains college quarterbacks, high school quarterbacks. Just threw a camp with dang near 100 kids out there, quarterback camp they just threw together, did an amazing thing. So he's a big-time guy, man. I actually have a kid from Arkansas that flies out to California just to work with Greg. So he's that good at what he does, pays attention to detail, and just got the pleasure of having him every Monday after games to talk about what we're seeing from the 49er quarterbacks, Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, and all that good stuff. So before we get started, make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button right now. Hit the like button right now. And I'm going to bring on my guy, Greg Panelli, right now. Greg, what up, man?
What's up, Croc? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. It's always good to have my buddies on here because it's just more of a natural flowing conversation, guys that I personally know. So I got my guy Jasper Rose, who he comes on for Whiteout Wednesdays, and we actually kicked Jasper's butt in the Graffiti Bowl versus San Jose City. He was a receiver for San Jose City at that time.
Killed him.
Yeah, so that's cool. So, just guys I know and stuff and get to talk ball and stuff a little bit. All right, but you and I, we're going to get into a little bit of topics with this 49er quarterback situation right now. Obviously, the 49ers took a guy, Trey Lance, with the number 3 overall pick, and a lot of people were, I don't want to say shocked, but, he had a pretty quick kind of rise to stardom, right? I mean, we're talking about a guy coming from FCS, and nobody understands that FCS more than you. You actually played at Eastern Washington. You were on their team when they won the national championship, right? FCS level. So you understand about all that. And the first thing I want to know is, what challenges are ahead for Trey Lance going from an FCS school where they dominated, I mean, the best FCS school in the nation, and boom, drafted number 3 overall, and now all of a sudden he's on the NFL roster. What things do you think might either, cause some, I don't want to say levels of concern, but learning curves that he might have, or things that he might step up and just be good right away because of the offense that he came from?
Right. Now, I think the obvious answer that's going to stick out to everybody and what people have been saying is, the fact that he's only played, was it like 17 games roughly or something like that. And the fact that he doesn't have a ton of in-game experience, really being a starter at North Dakota State for only a season and a few games on top of that. But, I think what he's been able to do in the offseason, he trains with Quincy and Sean out there in the South. I think that they've obviously done a good job with the quarterbacks that they have. Deshaun was one of those guys that's, after his first year, really, really turned the corner and has continued to accelerate in the NFL. I think that Trey is stepping into probably one of the best positions, obviously not from a quarterback perspective, but a best position from quarterbacks that are drafted. How many times you find a team that is damn near Super Bowl ready, and then they end up, being able to step into that spot with an opportunity to either play or sit behind Garoppolo and kind of learn the ways, but also jumping into a team that is ready to rock and roll from day one. It's not like they're stepping into a rebuild type of team. Shanahan's got this team ready to rock and roll from, take the injuries aside from last year. This was a Super Bowl team the prior year, and then all the injuries occurred and things didn't turn out so hot for him. But everybody seems to be back for the most part. So I think that he's stepping into a good position that pressure is not necessarily going to be on him as much as it would be a guy like Wilson who's stepping into the Jets.
Right.
Everybody's looking towards him to turn this whole Jets program around. I don't think it's going to be the case with Trey Lance.
All right, so just you personally, what situation would you kind of rather go into? A situation where you come in and you're Zach Wilson and you have the opportunity to really kind of be the face of this team right now, take over, be the guy from day one, and distribute the ball, all that good stuff, and everybody should lean on you, or Trey Lance, where when you're ready, you'll be competing for a starting job, but there's no rush to put you on the field day one. What situation would you rather be in?
From a team perspective, no offense to the Jets, but Trey Lance. Just because that team, like I said, is established, it's built around him. He's got guys that he's going to go into the huddle with that have been there, that have been to the Super Bowl, that have won the NFC Championship, that are leaders of the team. You look at guys like Kittle. You look at some of those receivers now that have been there. The rookie guys that we've had the last couple of years are now a little bit more established. The running backs as well. So they're gonna help alleviate some of that pressure, I think. And they know that, those guys, they're not dumb either. They know that they got a rookie kid that's going to step in potentially. That's if he beats Jimmy Garoppolo out. But Wilson, it goes back to the same thing every year with like the Browns or the Jets. It seems like those two teams, have been the popular ones with getting rookie quarterbacks in. Now, some of these rookie quarterbacks have been the best ever in college football, and then they step into a team with a crappy situation, and then 2 or 3 years they're out because they're not the ones that turned this whole program around. I didn't think that the Jets necessarily needed to go quarterback. I think they had, and I know you would probably agree and everybody else, that they had more issues outside of the quarterback position than they had necessarily with Sam.
Right.
So it's almost like they're kind of stepping into the same position they were in last year. It's like, you got a quarterback, but how can we build around the quarterback? Well, they built around the quarterback, but they went with Wilson like Darnold was the biggest issue on that team, and I don't think that was the case. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Wilson. I think that especially being in that city, with Trey Lance stepping in, being able to sit behind somebody or try and compete for that job. You look at the history behind those guys, the Bradys of the world, the Rodgers of the world.
Yeah.
Steve Young, playing with the Niners, obviously sitting behind Montana for a while. He was thrown into a bad position. Was in Tampa Bay, is that what it was, right? Tampa Bay, and then he came over to the Niners and sat for a while. Right. And it turned out all right. So historically, and even Jimmy G, sitting behind Brady, coming over, won a lot of games. I mean, he still won a lot of games in the NFL for the amount of time that he's played. So I think that history shows the guys that are able to come in and maybe sit for a little bit, whether that's a year, 6 games even, 2 years, doesn't matter. Those guys tend to have a little bit more of an edge up moving forward in years 2, 3, or 4 within their careers.
All right, so we're talking a little bit about Trey Lance and what situation you would rather be in. What realistic expectations do you have on a rookie? Because you understand all what goes into a playbook. I remember we went live last time. You showed us Tyler Bray's playbook from like the Bears, and it was like this thick or something crazy, right? And just like, so what are your expectations for a rookie quarterback? A lot of 49er fans, they feel like, shoot, day one, Trey Lance, he's more talented, he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo, he should hit the ground running. I don't know if that's the case. So I'm going to ask you, what learning curves do you see him possibly having, and how soon do you think the learning curves or whatever ups and downs he might have, like when are things going to start clicking for him?
I think that again, it goes back to the unique situation that the team is already kind of built around him, so he's stepping in a good spot. I think the pressure is more so on him, how fast he can process that information, being able to, I guess, live up to his expectations that he might have for himself, because I know he's going to want to step in there and be the starter.
Right.
100%. Why wouldn't he? That's just a quarterback mindset. You want to be the guy. But I think it's going to be up to him on his pace, how fast he can process that information that Shanahan's trying to give him, how fast he can step in and be that leader, how he can get guys to buy into him because that team is established, versus somebody like Wilson or another rookie quarterback that's stepping into a position where it's like all focus is on them. Yeah, there's going to be that focus on Trey Lance as the quarterback, but we have somebody in Jimmy Garoppolo that has been there for a while. So whether Trey Lance is the guy or not right away, I don't feel like that the success of the 49ers relies on Trey Lance's shoulders versus somebody like Wilson.
All right, so we talked a lot about Trey Lance and kind of the expectations of him coming in and what he might be dealing with. There is another guy there that you brought up a couple of times already, Jimmy Garoppolo, right? What are you thinking for him? Because this is a guy who sat behind Brady. He waited his time. He got traded to a team, won 6 straight games, and it's like, okay, this is the guy. He's the guy of the future. They paid him. They made him the highest paid quarterback in the league at that time, and then boom, dealt with an injury. Right, like after 3 games, dealt with an injury, and then right after the injury, like came back, eventually kind of, got that knee ready, went to a Super Bowl, and then the following year, boom, gets hurt and he misses most of the year, and a lot of people are kind of blaming him for the situation, and basically the coaching staff says, you aren't the issue, but you are the issue. You got to be healthier. We've played as many games with you as we've had without you since you being here. That's an issue. So what do you think his mindset is kind of heading into this season? And do you think he could possibly have a bounce back year?
No, I think that he could. I think obviously this is the year for him to do it. If he's going to do it, it's got to be now. Because it goes back to that first time you go down, something happens. You go down, you got to come out for a play. Trey Lance goes in there and lights it up. You're probably it's over for you. That's it. Because he's going to have a thin leash now with a true guy that they're basically grooming to replace him. Now it's got to be that tough. There's got to be a tough mindset, from a perspective, or for Jimmy Garoppolo's perspective, where it'll be interesting to see how he copes and deals with the situation of, okay, here's the rookie kid. This is the stud coming up to replace you. How do you embrace that situation? Do you embrace it like, okay, I'm going to try and get this kid ready? Or do you kind of say, screw him, I got to compete for my livelihood now, and I'm trying to play. So whatever he does, that's on him. I'm not trying to groom him to get him ready, but I got to be my own guy because he's still young. Jimmy Garoppolo is still young. He's fighting for his own spot. It's not like he's 38 or 39 years old at this point, and he kind of knows, all right, I got to get the youngster ready for a year or two from now. So I think that Jimmy's going to take it. I would expect him. He seems like a competitor. I think that he's going to take it as, I got to go in and do my own thing. Trey Lance, I'll help you out, but you're kind of on your own because I gotta make sure that I'm the guy this year. And I think that Jimmy's done enough to be the guy from the past. But I think that, like you said, it is your fault, but it isn't your fault type of thing. Like I always go back to the Super Bowl where it's like, if we would have won the Super Bowl, would we be in this situation?
See, I think so.
Huh?
I think so. I think they still be in this position because at the end of the day, you got to look at it from Kyle Shanahan's perspective, right? Kyle Shanahan is a guy who's probably, I don't even want to say probably, who is extremely confident in his abilities. And whether they won that Super Bowl or not, he's still looking at it like, I have one winning season in 4 years. And the reason why I won winning season in 4 years is because for whatever reason, I can't keep this quarterback on the field. So if the 49ers would have won the Super Bowl, I don't think it would have necessarily been because of Jimmy. Obviously, he would have been a pivotal piece of it. I mean, he's the quarterback, and we've seen what the 49ers look like without him with those quarterbacks. But I think he knows, like, I just need somebody to play some competent quarterback, and we can win a lot of games. I'm playing a lot of games without this guy. So even if he had that Super Bowl, we saw what the Philadelphia Eagles just did, right? I mean, they just won the Super Bowl a few years ago, and they've blown everything up since then.
Right. Absolutely. That's the thing too, is, they're getting the injury prone stuff. The year before he got hurt against the Chiefs, right? And he was out for the season. He did his ACL. Then comes back, goes to the Super Bowl. Then ends up getting hurt. He's on and off the field. And then finally shut him down. It hasn't been the best situation from a health standpoint for Jimmy. I think when he's in there, the team is better, obviously, than those guys that were behind him. But again, you touched base on it last time, is how limited is the playbook with Jimmy Garoppolo's abilities to stretch the ball down the field. Is there an opportunity for the other kid, Trey Lance, to come in because he's got a hose to be able to open up that playbook? And how soon will Shanahan do that, or how soon can he do that because you got a rookie kid coming in? let's say Trey Lance blows the doors off this thing in training camp, right? He's the number one guy. How much of the playbook is he going to be given, year one? How much of that playbook is he going to be given year two? And by year two, obviously, you're going to feel way more comfortable with protections, playbook, etc. But it'll be interesting to see with Trey Lance, if Trey Lance wins the job, how much of the reins that Shanahan kind of gives to him versus a guy like Jimmy, where you can basically give him the whole playbook, but not the whole playbook because of the abilities to stretch it downfield or lack thereof.
How big of a difference does that make, right? From a quarterback's perspective, you put yourself in Jimmy Garoppolo's shoes, right? And just say, knowing you have a good arm and you've been able to throw the ball downfield. But let's look at it from the standpoint of Garoppolo, where he has not been able to stretch the field vertically, right? So what kind of difficulties does that present for a defense, really not being able to push them? Does it make you have to be super accurate and everything underneath? And he's not just throwing the ball downfield. He's not throwing the ball outside the numbers a whole lot either. That hasn't been a strength of his. Kyle has done an amazing job being able to incorporate an offense that highlights Garoppolo's strengths, getting the ball out of his hands really quick. Right now, being able to drive some throws over the middle. But it seems like a lot of things are condensed. Does that make it a little bit more difficult to play the quarterback position when the defense is kind of sitting on routes?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that gets me is we have such a solid run game with the 49ers. I mean, that take away the run game the last couple of years, what would that offense really look like?
Right.
Nothing to stretch the ball downfield. I mean, things would be I think under the microscope a little bit more, even more so than they've been as far as balls downfield, to the sidelines, whatever it may be, or outside the numbers. But we have such a good run game that should be able to set up the pass. And because we have such a good run game, it's been able to kind of bring up those linebackers a little bit more. Therefore, we got balls across the middle to Kittle, to IU, to Debo, whatever it may be. So now those middles are open. But when you go outside, as you know, and they're playing match, even if it's zone, they're playing match on the backside or whatever it may be. It's not like he really takes those one-on-one shots or those alert reads to the outside very often. He's more focused on everything inside the numbers.
Right.
And I don't know if that's because he doesn't rely on his arm strength, if that's because Shanahan's telling him, hey, this first read's here, and then check down type of thing. I'm not sure how that's – I'm not obviously in the huddle or those quarterback meetings. But I think that with the run game that we have, just talking football-wise, we should be able to push the ball downfield, no problem. You're getting safeties to roll up the field. Especially when we go into more like a 21 personnel where you got two running backs in there. You got the fullback, the running back. You got Kittle on the line of scrimmage, and we're going play action over the top. But you go run, and we can't set up the play action over the top. It's like, how many times have you seen Garoppolo go over the top of the deep post or go over the top of the fade or whatever may be off of play action? And I'm talking more than 30 yards down the field.
Right.
It doesn't have – I mean, I probably count 5 times, in the last couple of years. Obviously, the one in the Super Bowl, that was a big one. Whether he ran the route too skinny, whether he threw him over the top too far, I don't know. We'll never know. And I still haven't gone back and watched the Super Bowl. I don't even know if you have. But
I have not.
I have not watched any clips from that Super Bowl. I don't want to watch any clips from that Super Bowl. I haven't watched the Ravens Super Bowl when we lost to them. So I think that a guy like Trey Lance being able to come in and stretch the ball downfield, given the run game that we have, is going to be killer. I think it's going to be huge. Look at Rodgers. He does it all the time. He's able to stretch the ball. And I think that we've had – besides Devontae Adams, we've been able to have receivers that are speedsters, track stars, and we're still not stretching the ball down the field. And when we do, maybe some of them are 5 yards underthrown. The guy's waiting for the ball, ends up getting tackled when he's catching the ball 45 yards on the field. So
that happened with Marquise Goodwin and some other guys
all
as
the
well.
time. I mean, that Goodwin, we got track stars on the outside, literal track stars, burners on the outside.
It's to the point now where I saw this big debate on Twitter the other day about Deebo Samuel. And Deebo has been limited to kind of a quote-unquote gadget guy. And people think that that's truly just what Deebo is. When really it's like, nah, Deebo has the skill set and ability to win at all levels of the field. We've seen it. But it's like, how can you judge Deebo when we've seen them throw in the regular season 2 go routes to him? 2. And one of them he bailed Jimmy out and scored a touchdown against Baltimore. The other one was severely underthrown when he had Griffin beat down the right sideline in that overtime loss to Seattle. So it's like we have guys that can stretch the field and do things vertically. And we saw a little bit of it from Brandon Ayuk, but it's just something that hasn't been consistent. Okay, I want to ask you this real quick. When you are a quarterback, right? What goes into being confident with throwing the deep ball? Because I feel like it's not just a pure arm strength thing, right? I mean, because it's like, you're in the NFL, your arm is strong enough, unless you're like old ass Peyton Manning. But you can, that was so bad. But you can, most guys can push the ball downfield, like in the sense of like if it's just they're just shoulder pads and there's no defense out there, they can throw 60-yard bombs, right? So what goes into being confident with throwing the deep ball? Is it maybe bigger receivers with more catch radius where you feel like you have more room for error? Is it just a lot of confidence in your abilities so you're able to just throw the ball down there and feel comfortable with it? I watch Aaron Rodgers. It seems like he doesn't think twice about throwing the ball downfield. It's just, I'm just flicking in. He's throwing into the perfect spot. Why are some people more comfortable or confident doing it than other guys?
I think it's an arm strength thing, just from my perspective. Now, this is my opinion on it. You think about going back to when you're a kid, right? You're playing football in the street. Like, you're not throwing hook routes and you're not throwing check down routes all the time. You get back as far as you can and wing it down the street, throwing it from light pole to light pole or whatever it may be in the streets, you know? And that's one of the first things you learn. Like, kids want to throw the deep balls all the time when they come out to my sessions. Like, look, I can teach anybody to throw a deep ball. You just drop back and just chuck it, right? Now we'll hone in on all the little things that come into it, whether it's your feet, your shoulders, where you're releasing the ball, whatever it may be. But at the same time, throwing a deep ball, in my opinion, it's probably one of the easier routes to throw because typically you're dropping back. Now, if it's a deep ball where you're going to hit your fifth step and you're dropping, you're letting it go and you're throwing it to an open area, so be it. But a lot of times with deep balls, you usually got some type of max pro where the back might be staying in, might be play action over the top. You're throwing it more so to an area for that guy to go get it versus like a bang post or a dig where you got to actually rip it and put it on his face. Now you're throwing it to an area over the top, right? You see the angle he's running at. Let's throw it up there and go get it, especially with the track stars. So a deep ball to me was always easier to throw because those guys have that different level of – or that next level of, okay, that go get it speed, right? Where you see the guys turn on the burners as the ball's in the air and they go get it. I don't understand how we're not doing that more often because we have those guys that can go get it and turn it on with that extra notch of speed where you're just throwing it up to an area. Yes, you got to be accurate. I'm not just talking about chucking the ball up in the air and just hoping that somebody gets there. But within a given area on the route that he's running, that should be one of the easier throws we have to make versus a layered dig over the top or the comeback with man on the backside, from the far hash, whatever it may be. So I think that's just a lack of confidence maybe or trust in the arm strength to be able to get it there.
Yeah.
Trying to be too perfect like that stop and go. I think it was against the Cardinals, first game of the year last year, wasn't it?
Where Kendrick Bourne in the end zone?
He underthrows him by 5 yards on a pump and go, and it was like a 30-yard throw.
Right.
But he was wide open. He could have just pumped it and literally drilled it to him, put it on him, and instead he floats it up in the air. So I think it's just a trust thing with his arm. I know that he knows he's got the abilities, but he's got to trust himself and translate it to the game.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, that's tough because I'm a great deep ball thrower, so it's like I don't understand how.
Yeah, I've seen your videos.
Yeah, I'm out here.
It's probably the easiest thing to teach people because given the fact that it's like from a start, from the first time you pick up a football, you just start chucking it down the field or you're chucking it in the street, right? But let me see you throw the under 25 routes or the under 15 routes and put it on somebody's face in a window. Those ones to me are way harder. Those throws to me are way harder than throwing a post over the top or throwing a fade down the sideline.
Right, and and there's a lot of people that think that it's Kyle Shanahan holding Jimmy back from throwing the deep ball, and I'm like, man, I don't think that's the case. Now I do see guys running vertical, but I don't know if it's because it's just a clear out and they just want to clear things out for, that drive throw, that dig, things like that over the middle. But 49ers throw the least amount of deep balls in the league. And I do think that getting a guy like Trey Lance will allow Kyle Shanahan to not only expand on the running game, which 49ers want to do as well. But like you said, let it rip downfield. And we watch teams like Tennessee, and I see guys like A.J. Brown, and people are like, oh, A.J. Brown, he's just way better than Debo. I'm like, man, I don't think he's just better than Debo. He has had more success, and I think part of it is, one, I mean, he's been healthier. Debo just had the injuries last year. But two, a quarterback who Tannehill's not great, but he's confident with throwing the ball down the field, and we've seen his receivers kind of be able to win off that. I got one more question for you here, and then if you guys have any questions, for Greg here, again, I'm talking with Greg Panelli. He's going to join us every Monday, talk about 49er games, the previous games, the quarterback performances. Greg has been a quarterback trainer. He's worked with Josh Allen. He actually sent out emails for Josh Allen to try to get him recruited, and everybody said, hell no, we don't want this Josh Allen kid. Now all of a sudden he's like running up for like MVP and stuff in the NFL, so you kind of got the last laugh on that. But before we get into the last question, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button right now, hit the like button right now. If you're not already, I'm partnered up with Underdog Fantasy. Download the Underdog Fantasy app or go to underdogfantasy.com. When you deposit a minimum of $10, sign up with promo code Crocky. All right, promo code Crocky. They're going to throw an additional $25 into your account. Go do that right now. Support the YouTube show. All right. So we'll get into this last question real quick. And I don't know what your situation was when you got to Eastern Washington, but I know that, you went there, they had another guy, whatever the situation was. Was there any type of competition? And if so, how could you compare that to your time there and that competition in comparison to Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo and what they might be experiencing?
Yeah, no, I think that when I signed at Eastern Washington right after we left JC, I signed there, and a few days later they mentioned they were going to bring in Bo Levi Mitchell from SMU. So the writing was a competition, but the writing was kind of on the wall. You're not going to bring in a FBS transfer to an FCS school for him to really sit the bench. I mean, realistically speaking. So he was the guy that ended up taking the job. And now he's like the Tom Brady of the CFL. He's won a couple of Grey Cups in the CFL, and he's gone on to have a ton of success. I think he's the second highest paid player in the CFL. So
he was just better than you, but go ahead. Sorry.
So I think from that perspective, like of a competition in the FCS versus NFL competition, I think it's a little bit different. I mean, when you go into college, there's scholarship guys year after year after year, right? In the quarterback position, there's every single year, it seems like a school is bringing in a new quarterback, right? Whether there's a starter there or not. And it could be a 1-year, 2-year starter, 3-year starter, whatever it may be. If you've had success at that particular school as the starter, most times you're either coming into redshirt or you're going to come in and fight for the backup spot. And they know that right off the bat. This situation's a little bit different. You're getting drafted. How often do the Niners draft a quarterback? Obviously not too often, right? Or any NFL team for that matter. So when you get drafted to come in and now you're going to be competing with a guy that was just in the Super Bowl 2 years prior, but has had injury problems, and you're a first-round draft pick, and they traded a lot of equity to go get you, that circumstance is a little bit different. This is not like he's a fourth-round draft pick and we took him just because he was available. Trey Lance, I don't even know how many picks. I think it was 3 total. The comp pick and 2 first. Is that what it was?
It was. They used a total of 3 on him when you consider the number 3 overall pick and then 2 future picks, right? And then like a 3rd round pick as well. So 4 total picks, 3 first rounds.
Right. So that being said, you got to know as Trey Lance, okay, these guys went out to get me. This is not just to go be the backup and learn for a couple years. Like they've moved up for a reason, and they haven't been able to rely on Jimmy from a consistent standpoint over the last 3 to 4 years. Your mindset's got to be, okay, I'm going in there to actually try and take this job. Like, this is mine to lose at this point, essentially. If they've traded up that much, all the hype given around him, and obviously picked him over a few other quarterbacks that were still available, that shows the love and the trust that I think that Kyle Shanahan has for Trey Lance. So I think this competition is a little bit different than a college perspective, just given the fact that they went up to go get him. They gave away a lot of equity to go get him. There was other guys on the board, and they took him, and he was probably the least experienced out of all of these guys from a game perspective, like how many games he actually played in college.
It actually was the same as Mac Jones. They both started like 17 games.
It was similar. That's right.
Now, he didn't throw the ball nearly as much. So if you just kind of go off of like that, I mean, Mac Jones threw like 2 times as many passes. So
Right. Well, he's also got 2 times as many athletes on the field. No offense to North Dakota State, but he's got a lot more. He had a lot more around him at Alabama than he did, or than Trey Lance had at North Dakota State. But the one thing that I think helps Trey Lance was the fact that they do have more of a pro-style driven offense at North Dakota State. It seems like that playbook is a little bit more complex, and from what I've heard at Alabama, not a knock on any of those guys or Nick Saban, but I've known a few guys to coach there in the past, and there is some check with me stuff. When you do have guys like, Devonta Smith around and everybody on your offensive line and your running backs, Najee is going to the NFL, it alleviates a little bit of that pressure to go win games when you got everybody as far as the starting 22 that's probably going to the NFL, right? So you're going to look.
We're not just talking about going to the NFL. I mean, we're talking about 4 receivers that went in the top 15 in 2 years. Like that, that's amazing. I've never seen anything like that.
I feel like Crocky might be able to step in at Bama and be the guy at quarterback at this point. You might have to do a couple training sessions, but I feel like you could be the guy. So I think that Trey Lance is just overall the competition. It's almost going to be his to lose. I know it's definitely Jimmy's to lose, but I feel like Trey Lance could step in, and from what we've heard over the OTAs, the OTA period, what we did have of OTAs was pretty solid. And I know there's a lot of hype around his arm talent. I know he's been working in the offseason, like I said, with Quincy and Sean. So he'll be ready to rock and roll. I'm excited to see it. I think it's going to be a solid competition. It's probably going to be one of the more hyped up stories leading into the season, besides the Aaron Rodgers and Tay Adams thing that's going on over there in Green Bay. But I think overall it's going to be a lot of hype around it. Who's going into week 1 as the guy? I think you're going to see a lot of reps from Trey Lance in preseason, and I also think you're going to see a lot from Jimmy versus the fact that, okay, maybe Jimmy's not going to get as much because he's the veteran. I think they're going to leave it up to the preseason stuff to really have a true competition on this thing.
Yeah, and one other note on Trey Lance as well. He actually had a similar situation as you while he was at North Dakota State. North Dakota State brought in an FBS quarterback, I want to say from Iowa State, and they brought him in to really play over Trey Lance, who was a redshirt freshman, and he beat the guy out and then went on to go undefeated and win a national title. And I think that's one part of things, the situation with Trey Lance, where a lot of people are like, well, he's at North Dakota State, everything was perfect, never had to go through any adversity. And it's like, man, he had a quarterback. They were bringing a guy in to play over him and beat a guy. And he had to work extremely hard to beat him out. So I think there's some adversity there. And obviously the pressure of going to a North Dakota State and living up to the expectations of the guys that, before you, whether it's Carson Wentz, Easton Stick, some of these guys are really talented. And now it's like, dang, I have to lead this team to a national title and win it. And then we saw this past year where, okay, you don't have Trey Lance anymore, and first round they get knocked out by Sam Houston. So, yes, North Dakota State is great, powerhouse, all that, but he definitely made a difference.
Right.
All right, I want to get to a couple of questions. If you guys have any questions for Greg, here's one question here. All right, from Brandon. What QB skills / skills cannot be taught? What are the habits and skills that cannot be fixed? So essentially he's just asking, like, what's hard to learn, what things that people just can't learn, and what's the hardest things to fix?
I think excuse me, the first thing that sticks out to me is the feel for the game, right? That natural feel when you're in a game, just being a competitor. When things go bad, how do you react, right? And obviously that comes with experience too, but there's plenty of guys I see at the high school level, the college level, even the NFL level. When things go south during a play, are you the guy that's going to freestyle the rest of that play, or are you going to be the guy that kind of gives up, throws it away, or not trying to extend a play? And I think that's what makes guys like Kyler and guys like Russell Wilson, guys like Josh, Mahomes, even Brady, where they're not just the give it up type of dudes, where they have good movement in the pocket. Now, the good movement in the pocket can be taught, right, with footwork and things like that. But when it goes south and you're damn near going down, right, and you keep going and you extend that play, I think that's just a little bit more fight. It's a little bit more of that competitiveness. That's really tough to teach. I mean, that's got to be a feel thing from within. Habits and skills that cannot be fixed. I don't know. That's a tough one. I think that the arm strength perspective, or the arm strength topic, from just talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, that is, you're at the point now where you're 28, 29 years old, 30 years old. I mean, how many things can you do at this point to continue to improve your arm strength? Yes, you can improve the mechanics and the throwing motion, your hips, et cetera. So how can we build up to get him to push the ball down the field more? I mean, you're just going to throw 1,000 deep balls a day and just hope that your arm gets stronger? I don't think that would necessarily work. So just from that topic, talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, I think that would be a pretty tough skill to continue to build, given the age that he's at. Now, if it's a 14 or 15-year-old, that's a different story. You're still growing muscles, whatever, development. But in the NFL, that's a pretty, once you're there, you're going to improve a little bit as far as arm talent goes, maybe. But it's almost tapped out when you're 30 years old. What you see is what you're going to get at that point. So I don't think that's something that necessarily could be improved on heavily at the age and the level that he's at.
So I have a question, and it's not about Jimmy Garoppolo's arm strength or Trey Lance's arm strength. We know he has a big arm, but why is it sometimes that we see a guy like Trey Lance, he's throwing the ball vertically? I've seen him make perfect throws down the field. I've seen him overthrow guys because he has such a powerful arm. But then I've seen him kind of short arm, some throws where he threw it, maybe 3, 4, 5 yards short, where now, his receiver had a guy beat. It turns into either a contested attempt or a pass that ends up being broken up. Why is it that a guy with that big of an arm ends up maybe sometimes throwing balls short of what he's trying to get it to?
I think it's just trying to be too touchy with it, trying to be too good with that particular ball, because we all know guys like him can throw the ball, 67 yards down the field with ease. But it's just trying to be too touchy, trying to put it on him too good, and making sure that ball is too perfect. I think that's when guys get caught up throwing it too short. Me in particular as well, back in the day when I was playing, is the same thing, where you're trying to be so good with that ball that you don't want to screw it up and overthrow them, even when they do got him beat. You don't want to launch it down the field and it ends up on the sideline, and then you're going back and getting yelled at by the coach and the receiver because you just airmail the ball 5 yards over when it's a touchdown. So it's just, I think it's trying to be too good with that particular ball they're necessarily throwing.
All right, that makes sense. All right, and then here we go. This will probably be the last question here. All right, could Jimmy improve his deep balls by simply stepping into his throws?
I think that he could. Obviously, last year, last 2 years, you look at that front stride. It was interesting to see once he got that knee brace on and was in the games, what does his feet look like when there's a little bit of a crowd around him? Now, most guys in the NFL, they don't just step and throw the ball and stand there, right? They're throwing it and they're getting out, or they're throwing it and they're getting hit right away. But from that perspective, even on short throws, you would watch Jimmy step and his front foot would almost fly open. So it would almost be like a step replace, or like a negative step, where he would just fly his hip open, his front side open, and try and rely on his arm to make that throw across the middle. It wouldn't necessarily pop the same ways it would if he got that front foot driving downfield or cutting his receiver off with his front step. So I think, if you get the chance to obviously drop back and step into a throw, you're going to be able to keep your front side closed a little bit longer, create a little bit more torque with the hips. Now, he's been able to do that, though. And that's the thing, is he's been able, and he showed us that he can step into the throws, but it's still not coming out the same way as maybe Trey Lance. It's not coming out the same way as Patrick Mahomes. Just because Jimmy steps into throws doesn't necessarily mean he's going to turn into a guy with a big arm. At some point or another, like I said, it's going to get maxed out. Now, you can step into throws and overstride. And that's a big thing too. You take a big, huge stride on a deep ball. How long do you get with your front stride to where your hips are now ineffective, and then you have to use your arm more? Yeah. So a lot of it comes from the ground up, where we're striding, then the hips are firing, the arm is chasing, and that's called dissociation. And we get that disconnection from the upper half and the lower half. But Jimmy's shown that he does do that sometimes. But since he's had that knee brace on, and since things kind of went south with his ankle and his lower half of the body, it hasn't looked the same. So I don't know if he's going to bounce back from that. That was one thing I keyed on right off the bat, was how is he going to step into these throws? Is he going to be comfortable with people at his feet and still be able to drive the ball downfield? And it took him a while, but I still think he does it where he doesn't like the fact that people are there. And the quarterbacks don't. It's not comfortable to have somebody rolling into your knee, obviously, or rolling into your ankles. But that's what you're paid to do when you've done it your whole life. And then he put the knee brace on, and he's had those injuries now, where things kind of changed and wasn't able to necessarily drive it the same, or didn't feel comfortable driving that ball down the field the same.
All right, we have a question here from Brandon. He says, are teams QB coaches enough in the modern day NFL, or do QBs need private coaches / academies?
This is a kind of a common question I hear just from a college coach perspective, because I've had guys from the NFL move down to the college ranks, and I've talked to them over the last couple months. And I think that it depends if it's a quarterback-driven guy. Like, you look at guys like McVay, you look at guys like Shanahan, LaFleur, who are younger dudes and kind of more with the modern ways of what's being done these days at the quarterback, in the quarterback world or the quarterback training world. But I also think that from what I've heard and from what I see is guys that are quarterback coaches in the NFL, whether they're older dudes or younger dudes, they don't necessarily have the wherewithal or the time to just sit back and teach mechanics and look at the biomechanics of the throwing motion. They're more driven on the fact that you need to have the offense down. We're game planning for the week. We need to make sure that you're prepped to go against the Seahawks or the Cardinals, whoever it may be. And this is what the protections are. And these are the tendencies the defense is showing, et cetera, versus spending time on the little intricacies of the footwork, where their step is. Are their hips firing at the right time? Where's the arm path? Where's the release point? Things like that. So I think right now, currently within the NFL, there's a reason why people go to quarterback trainers in the offseason. And it seems like almost everybody does within from all 32 teams, maybe giving Aaron Rodgers as being the outer guy on that one. I think that most of the starters in the NFL, I mean, even Tom Brady, right? So like Tom Brady and Drew Brees, they've gone to Tom House down in Southern California, who's a biomechanics guru. How can they improve even after Super Bowls, numerous Super Bowls? How could Tom Brady continue to get better with his throwing motion, with his mechanics, with his footwork? How can he continue to create more torque throwing the ball? Guys that are highly successful. Patrick Mahomes goes to a private quarterback coach still. So it's like these guys are continuing to do it because they're not necessarily getting those things during the season, because quarterback coaches in the NFL are more, I think they're more focused, and they have to be more focused on game planning, defensive recognition, protections, and everything surrounding the offense, not the little intricacies within the quarterback play from the feet to the arm to the hips, et cetera.
Yeah, and that lines up with, I was talking to a receiver coach in the NFL, and I asked that same question because there are a lot of people that think like, oh, this guy's going to go to the NFL, he's going to develop, and he's going to develop that part of his game. So I asked the receiver coach, because I remember my time with the New York Jets, and there wasn't a whole lot of developing Eric Crocker. All right, you kind of, hey, you just got to get this game down. And when I'm talking to the receiver coach, he was a receiver coach with the Philadelphia Eagles at this time, and I asked that question, like, how much developing goes on with you as a receiver coach? And he said, Croc, to be real, not much. His main focus, like you said, getting his receiver prepared to be able to play in the game. So the one thing that people don't understand sometimes as fans is all these guys are good athletes. Like they have the ability. You've seen them play extremely well. What changes for some guys is their ability to really pick up the game and understand their assignments and be able to play fast. When you're thinking too much, and you start to get in your head, especially as a receiver, now you're not playing fast. Now, when the ball's coming on, you just start thinking about some other stuff, and then the ball comes, and then you drop the ball, and you see a guy have a bunch of drops as a rookie or second year. I think Jerry Rice had a ton of drops his rookie year, and we understand the kind of hands that he has. So those are things that I think sometimes the fans don't understand. The developing of a receiver or quarterback, a lot of it isn't really done by the team. They're more so focused on developing him in the sense of understanding what they're seeing and how to react to it, as opposed to this guy's going to get better on his release, or this guy's going to get better at driving the deep out and whatnot. And I think that's really a common misconception amongst fans when it comes to people, quote unquote, developing at the NFL level. All right. Now I think this would be the last question here. Croc, did the coordinators in the NFL catch up to his game since he came to the Niners, and is it just you don't have the ability to adjust to these the guys in the box? So I'm pretty sure this is a question about Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'll talk about what I'm saying real quick, and then you can answer. Then we'll get you out of here. But to me, it seems like teams have adjusted. Now, teams can adjust to you, but as long as you have a good coach and coordinator, which I think obviously the 49ers have with Kyle Shanahan, he's able to adjust as well. I think Kyle Shanahan does as good of a job of getting Jimmy Garoppolo in situations to where he likely be successful. So he's not going to do a whole lot of things that he feels like Jimmy Garoppolo either can't do very well or Jimmy Garoppolo just can't do well, right? Like, he knows who Jimmy is and what he does well. I remember we talk about him throwing the ball down the field. And if you remember in those first 5 starts or whatever in that 2017, he threw the ball down the field a couple of times to Marquise Goodwin, and it was ugly. Mm-hmm. Like, it wasn't pretty. And I feel like since then he was just like, okay, I'll dial up some shot plays that I know are just gonna be able to work against the rules of a defense and be able to scheme guys open downfield, and we'll throw those deep shots. But in the sense of just throwing a vertical contested catch ball, I don't feel that comfortable with my quarterback being able to do that. All right. So, you look at where does he win, right? Well, he wins inside the numbers, inside the hatches, over the middle. Jimmy Garoppolo is really good in timing and rhythm. When you kind of take away maybe his first read, whatever that is, whatever he thinks his first read is post snap, I think that's when you start to see a little panicky. Then he starts doing some kind of weird stuff, But overall, I mean, teams are always going to adjust to what they're seeing on film, and I think they've done that with him. It's always going to be, what's the counter going to be from Kyle Shanahan, and he's going to have to do it. Now, got a guy like Trey Lance, and you're hoping that teams are going to they're going to start to figure out what Trey Lance does well or doesn't do well. Then it's going to be on Kyle Shanahan to put Trey Lance in a winning situation. The good thing is, Trey Lance is a guy that doesn't have to do it all with his arm. He can do it with his legs as well, and you can implement things like that and start to make things a little bit easier on him. So that's just kind of my take on that. I don't know what your take is, but
yeah, no, I think that we've seen coordinators try to keep up with Shanahan, right? Shanahan, I mean, you go back to even the Super Bowl, or I think it was a Super Bowl, where Shanahan's on the sidelines. Maybe it was the NFC Championship game. I forget which game it was, but they show that clip over and over where Shanahan's running up the sidelines. He's yelling at the ref. He's going to hold him. He's going to hold him right here. And sure enough, they held Kittle on that play, right? And I forget what game it was. But
yeah, that was the Packers NFC Championship game.
Yeah, so that game. And he's calling the shot. He knows exactly what's going to happen. I feel like Shanahan's prepared at this point, and most offensive coordinators do, where they believe in the fact that they call a play, it's probably going to work, right? It has a really good chance of working. Now, on the flip side, defenses are doing the exact same thing. It's not like that offenses are preparing and defenses are just BSing during the week. They're doing the exact same thing. They're trying to find little cues and ticks that throughout the week and tendencies versus when they're playing the Niners or any other team. But Shanahan's done such a good job of running plays out of from literally run plays out of pass formations, and they've blocked it well and they've done well with it. Where he's moving guys around and trying to create mismatches. Now, the one team that I think really figured it out from a pass game perspective was the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And what did they do? They brought pressure. They were in Jimmy Garoppolo's face a lot. They made him uncomfortable, like you said. They said, screw it. We're going to bring pressure, throw the ball at us, and see what happens. And how many balls were batted down in the game? How many times is Jimmy Garoppolo getting hit? Now, on the flip side of that, the one thing that's still, and I'm Greg Panelli, I'm not Kyle Shanahan by any means whatsoever. This is just being the couch quarterback here. If we continue to run the ball in that game, given the pressure, like when teams bring pressure and you're able to run the ball successfully against pressure, there's less guys on defense that can stop that run game now, especially up the middle or guys from the outside. If you got 2 guys coming from the outside and 4 D linemen, so they're bringing 6, take away the corners. I mean, there's not many guys in the middle that are going to be able to stop that run play. You're getting 5, 6 yards, 7 yards a pop minimum, and that's if the safeties are able to fly up and stop it. And we went away from that run in the Super Bowl when they finally kind of brought the pressure towards Jimmy G. I'm thinking run, because they couldn't necessarily stop the run. If you go look at the stats in the Super Bowl, we were able to run highly successful, 3, 4 yards a pop against them, minimum. And then we go back to the pass plays where they're bringing pressure against Jimmy, and things kind of fell apart. And we kept trying to go back to those pass plays, and it wasn't necessarily working, or it didn't necessarily look the sexiest, if you would. So I don't think that teams have completely figured it out, because Shanahan will continue to put plays together on the field and within the playbook that he knows will be successful, but it's being able to operate. God forbid he calls a play and he's anticipating this coverage and it doesn't happen. Now it's on the quarterback's hands to either make the adjustment with the protections, find your check route, flip the play, kill that certain play and do another play or call another play. Those are the things that are going to fall on the shoulders of Garoppolo and Trey Lance. And if they're not able to necessarily do that, then yeah, things will fall apart at some point or another. But I think that Shanahan's got a ton of things up his sleeve that we haven't even seen yet, and he's going to continue to develop the offense as a whole. But I think that it's if Trey Lance gets in there, whether it's week 2, week 3, week 10, whatever it may be, I feel like we will see Trey Lance. Obviously, if he's not the starter, we're still going to see him at some point this year, just for Shanahan to let it rip at some point or another. But when he does go in there, I think it's going to be pretty fun to see the things that he'll be able to do down the field.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, so I'm gonna hang around a little bit longer. I'm gonna get you out of here, Greg. I appreciate your time. You guys, I'm gonna cut Greg off there because we gotta have something to talk about next Monday as well. All right, before the preseason game start. All right, so Greg, I appreciate you for your time. I'll get you out of here. I'll see you next Monday.
All right, sounds good. We'll see you guys.
All right. That was my guy, Greg Panelli, quarterback coach, and he's out there in the Central Valley. Does an amazing job working with youngsters out there, college guys, NFL guys. Does an amazing job. So if you're in the Central Valley, go ahead and holler at my dog Greg. Again, I got a guy out here from Arkansas that flies to California just to work with Greg because he's that good, and he'll be joining us every single Monday. All right, if you guys aren't already, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button right now. Hit the like button right now. All right, I'm here. I'm going to hang out a little bit longer to answer any other questions you guys have. Remember, the audio to this will also be on any streaming site that you use. So whether it's Apple, whether it's Spotify, all that good stuff, this will also be on there so you guys can listen to the audio as well if you weren't able to catch the whole thing. All right. Jairo, there we go. Thanks for the content, Croc. I appreciate it. Salute. Crocker, big TV, big homie. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I see some people from my hometown in here too. Got some Stockton folks in here. Croc, why did you go to Delta? I did go to Delta. So I went to Delta 2005, but I had a kid and I flunked out. So that's what happened. But I was coached by Coach Barlow my freshman year. I actually had an interception in my first ever game against Modesto Junior College. Clearly, you see my Pirates chair right there. So I actually ended up going to MJC after. I got a long story. We'll get to my story one day when it's a slow week. All right. But any questions you guys have? Brandon Vincent, great episode. Appreciate it. Hey, man, listen, I'm going to keep bringing my guys on here. Obviously, we're going to have Greg every single Monday. Got Whiteout Wednesday with my guy Jasper Rose. That's excellent. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're going to have Real Talk Fantasy Football with myself and Jason Aponte. So, man, hey, this platform right here is going to keep growing, y'all. It's going to keep growing. Trust me. I got some big things working. for Croc Talk TV. Big things. Croc, do you believe Kyle gave up on the run game early in the Super Bowl? I'll say this, man. From what I remember and kind of hearing some conversations around Kyle Shanahan in the Super Bowl, the 49ers kind of called 2 plays going to the line of scrimmage, and based on the look that the defense gave them, that 49ers had the option to either run the ball or throw it. So some of those were kind of like built-in checks, whether it's a run or an RPO, and because of what they were showing, because of what the Chiefs were showing, the 49ers were trying to throw behind it. So it could have been a run play, but they see how the defense is lined up. So they checked into a pass play, and then the ball got batted down, or Jimmy Garoppolo missed a guy, or was Kendrick Bourne ran a wrong route, and everything kind of got screwed up. I think everybody's time clocks were really sped up at that time. I think that was a big issue with what happened there. Croc out here hustling. Yeah, man. Shoot, you run your own businesses, whether it's Croc Talk TV. Obviously, we have Locked On 49ers, one of the top, pretty much most of the time, the top football podcast on the Locked On Network. Typically, number 3. We've been the number 3 podcast on the entire network. That should change once football season starts. I'd expect us to have the number 1 podcast in the entire network. So we're doing big things there. And yeah, man, you got to keep grinding, got to keep hustling. I got some big news coming this week. Breaking ground finally. I'm building a gym, 12,000 square foot sports performance facility out here in Arkansas, and we are breaking ground this week. So I'm super, super excited about that. Get that whole thing going, man. So you know what I'm saying? You gotta hustle, man. Gotta have. My dad told me, man. Hey, my dad told me. He said, I remember being young and I asked my dad for $5, right? And my dad was like, gotta spread your pimping. Gotta spread your pimping, man. So that's all I'm doing, man. I'm spreading my pimping, getting a little, to multiple different things. But most of it's surrounding football, sports in general, which, I could talk about this stuff in my sleep. I love this stuff. So here we go. Do you expect, and this answers from question is from Brandon. Do you still expect K'Wan Williams to rush the QB as much with DeMeco's defense? It sounds like DeMeco Ryan plans on being very aggressive. So if you go off of that, I'd say they'd send him. Now, 49ers were very aggressive last year. I think a lot of it had to do with them trying to manufacture pass rush. I don't think that's what Saleh wants to do, but if you can't get there with 4, then you're going to have to figure out different ways to bring pressures. And I thought that's what we saw a lot of them doing. But K1 win, man. I mean, big time player, playmaker. I want to say 2019, what he forced, like 4 fumbles, had multiple sacks. I mean, had some, interception. Like, K'Wan Williams, good football player. Good football player. We'll see how DeMeco Ryans use him. Time is money, Croc. I feel you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Here we go. But I agree sometimes, just earlier before, he's under too much pressure. Are you saying that Jimmy Garoppolo should throw earlier before he is under too much pressure? Am I reading that right? Jimmy Garoppolo is someone that wants to play within like the rhythm and timing of an offense, and I think that's where he excels most. So when that starts to get thrown off, then things start getting weird. Jimmy does not want to hold on to the ball because he doesn't have that, what they call it, second reaction type skill set. So you see him holding on to the ball long, like that's not what he wants to do. He wants to drop back and get the ball out of his hands right now. Here we go. Is that rumor that Jimmy Garoppolo threw 70 yards true? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised, but that's not the issue. Like the issue with him isn't being able to throw the ball 70 yards down the field on air. The issue is when bodies are around you, do you have the arm strength to get the ball out of your hands right now and still throw it with, being able to drive it, whether it's over the middle, which I think he does a good job of, but outside the numbers, starts to die a little bit. Down the field, definitely hasn't thrown that with confidence. So, you could throw a ball 70 yards routes on air, but how is your confidence when there is a defender and you know that the ball has to be out in timing, rhythm, driving it, has to be on the line, can't start to die. Those are balls that end up getting intercepted. And, I mean, I don't think that's been his biggest issue has just been not seeing linebackers and underneath coverage. He throws a lot of stupid interceptions. I can live with interceptions. You get 12, 13 interceptions, all right. But can they be like contested or something? All right, man, we just hit an hour, so we're going to get out of here because I know most people aren't going to stick around for the whole podcast when I load it to Apple. Again, if you're not already, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button right now. Hit the like button right now. I don't know how many likes we got so far, but if I don't have, because a lot of this episode we have about 85 people, so if I don't have 85 likes when we get up out of here, I'm going to be upset with all of y'all. All right, so hit that like button, hit the subscribe button right now. Again, we're going to have this QB Monday with Greg Panelli coming at you every single Monday. Tomorrow, tune in for the Fantasy Football Show. We are actually going over the NFC West. So myself, Jason Aponte, will be going over the NFC West tomorrow on the Fantasy Show. So, yeah, tune in for that, all that good stuff. Underdog Fantasy, if you're not already, sign up on Underdog Fantasy. When you deposit a minimum of $10, type in the promo code Crocky. Once you do that, they're going to add an extra $25 to your account. A lot of good stuff on there. You got player props. When the season starts, you're going to see, like, in the game, you can do, like, this guy versus this guy. So it'll be like, who's going to do better? Say if you have the Colts against the Steelers, right? They'll have a prop on there. Who's going to get more rushing yards? Is it going to be Najee Harris, or is it going to be Jonathan Taylor? And you can put a wager on that. So really cool app. Got a lot of good stuff. Make sure you guys tune into all that good stuff. But for this episode of Croc Talk TV, that's going to do it. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.